Welcome to Wired Up Retro, Episode 6. Today we are going to be continuing to talk a little bit about the Atari 5200. The 5200 controller, kind of panned over the years, basically can be replaced, and there are certain adapters that accomplish this quite handily. So I'm going to go over a little bit more information about certain types of controllers that you might be able to enjoy on your 5200, some of which are pretty unique animals. Okay, so you may actually be plenty surprised by what you can utilize on your 5200, and a lot of the reason that people don't even collect for the Atari 5200 is because they've heard the horror stories about the controllers not working right and having to have a refurbished controller and spending $50 to do that, and sometimes they fail and these kinds of things. So anyway, on episode 5, I brought forward information about the Masterplay Interface Clone, and this is an adapter based on an adapter from the 1980s called the Masterplay Interface, which allowed you to use an Atari 2600 controller on digital games. Well, the Masterplay Interface Clone takes that up a notch, enabling you to use some nice controllers like Genesis controllers and having 2-button capability for games like Defender, etc. So this is a very nice adapter. It also has paddle capability by switching the button over to the side. You don't have to adjust or actually modify the paddles, which is a real easy mod, and I showed that in episode 5, so check that out. Also in this video, we're not just going to cover the Masterplay Interface Clone, but we're going to cover an adapter that's made by a member at Atari Age Bohoki, and that is called the PC 15-pin Gameport to Atari 5200 adapter. So basically this plugs into the 5200, and this allows you to plug a PC controller, maybe the Gravis PC gamepad for instance, right into this, and again it allows for 2-button capability, even in controllers like the MancoPad PC, and this one's a little more diverse. It's got the analog stick and the D-pad, which you choose between by clicking back and forth on that button, and that makes it a little extra special. This right here is the Vortex 3D, and the Vortex 3D is pretty unique. It actually, just like this controller, has a digital and an analog button that you switch between. And you can actually hold this just like a gamepad. You got the directional pad right here. But if you mount it to this base, the Vortex 3D then, when you switched over to analog mode, becomes a either steering wheel, or you can play flight games with it, adjusting the pitch and the yaw of your flight controls. So it's definitely unique. The Vortex 3D is a little bulky. You kind of need maybe a table to lay it on, but it does work well with this adapter. And there are other controllers you can use with this as well, which I might just touch on real quick here. This is actually a PC controller. It's made by Thrustmaster, and it actually is looks like a Saturn controller from the mid-90s. So you can actually use a mid-90s Saturn-like controller on your Atari 5200 if you like that particular design. Also, with additional adapters, you can play games with PlayStation controllers. That adapter happens to be made by Tototech, and I've mentioned this in a couple of our past videos. This is called the Joypad Converter version MD, which you plug a PlayStation controller in. It's got its end as a Genesis controller. You just plug it straight into this, the Masterplay Clone, and get it rolling with PlayStation controllers. And these PlayStation controllers now would have the 2-button capability, and so you can actually use either the D-pad or the thumbstick on certain PlayStation controllers. Some work with it. Some may not work with the 5200. The ones I've enjoyed are this is one particular one. This is another one. This is called the Naki, and I don't really know what Naki calls this, but it's really a unique controller, and I'm going to show you something about it in a few minutes when we're doing the gameplay part of our video. But this is actually a separatable controller from the early 90s, it's probably from 95, and you can actually take this off and take this off, and instead of using your left thumb, if you want to switch off to this hand, you can put it in the opposing hand, so you can have a right-hander if you want to, and of course this would be held by the left hand. but you just separate them. It's almost like holding a Wii controller, the nunchuck. It's kind of neat. So another thing I wanted to touch on here are some of the Xbox controllers. If you plug in, if you plug in the Tototech adapter to your 5200 via this, and then plug an Xbox controller into this XP Joybox adapter, you basically plug the PlayStation side into this end, and then you take your Xbox controller, which I have one right here that does work with it. It's the Xbox S, or controller S, and that plugs into this. And as soon as you click on the analog button, it lights up, and sure enough, you're actually playing your 5200 games with an Xbox controller. And I tried about 7 different Xbox controllers. This was the last one I tried, and all of them weren't working with this setup. But the very last one, the S controller, ended up working, so go figure. I tried the Duke, which is the original, big-sized Xbox controller. That did not work. I tried a Mad Catz. I tried a Pelican. I tried a Trick controller, this one right here. The Trick controller's got some programmability features, but it definitely did not work with it. So, but yeah, I tried a bevy of Xbox controllers to no avail until the controller S. Thank goodness for the controller S. But yeah, if you like the Xbox, give it a try. You can try connecting 3 adapters together and get that Xbox controller rolling. All right, and just wrapping it up here, I do want to go back to this adapter, the PC Gameport to 5200 adapter. This is an Ultra Racer PC controller. This was released also for PlayStation 1 in a different color, kind of a light white color or beige color, and then, or no, it was gray. And then there's also a black version of this for the Nintendo 64, and there may have, I'm thinking there wasn't one for the Saturn, but yeah, N64, yes. And this controller basically offers you the analog back and left and right controls with digital A and B buttons. Again, you can change gears in the game pole position using one of these buttons, and then accelerate with the other one, and then letting off. The accelerator actually does the braking. But pole position for the 5200 works fantastic with this, and I'm definitely a fan of the Ultra Racer for the 5200. Another controller I'll talk about here, let me grab it. This is the GeForce Plus, and basically let me move some of these out of the way. This is a flight stick, and it has forward and back and forward capabilities, and I will be showing a little bit of gameplay using this GeForce Plus. I'm also going to mention here that another possible candidate for flight stick games on the 5200 is the Marvel yoke, and this one also has forward and back, and then this left and right action, and then you've got a button here as a trigger, and then you've got this button up top, and they both are capable of doing the 2-button games. So yeah, that's a nice controller for the Atari 5200 flight games, like, let's say, for instance, Buck Rogers. And also Rescue on Fractalus is a good example of a flight game you can use those with as well. And of course this one will also work nicely for that. And if you're into flight games and you want to use this along with a PlayStation adapter from Tototech, you can use certain PlayStation 1 flight sticks. And I've had good fortune with this one. This is called the Eagle Max. And the Eagle Max, again, you can get great control out of this, and 2-button action for games that require that, such as, I'm trying to think of the one I was enjoying the other day. Oh yeah, there's a game that was called The Last Starfighter, which was made, I believe, for the Atari computers, and some of the fans of Atari 5200 have converted that over to the 5200, enabling you to use these kinds of controllers, and it's a really nice flight stick game, and it has 1 button for bombs and 1 button for lasers, so it's a good 2-button game for this controller. And this actually has an X button that's put to use, and I believe this this circle button is put to use, not the trigger up front. Okay. All right, so hopefully that makes sense, and we'll proceed with showing you some gameplay footage. So sit back and enjoy as I show you the possibilities that the Atari 5200 offers you as a gamer. Turn this up.